can almost feel the hush of the blanket of snow going over this scene and these folks in this cozy cabin here. So we're going to learn how to paint this scene, which is perfect for framing, and give it depth and dimension by using watercolor. So grab your supplies and let's get painting. We're going to paint this snowy scene right here. I've got some paints mixed up from my woodland set. I have this deep moss over here mixed with bear, or you can use deep moss with this cavern here, tones down the blue a little bit, and I just have some bear and sand ridge. So we're going to get started right now by painting these trees. And what I'm doing here is just kind of dabbling and dancing my brush on the bottom of these branches, the boughs of this tree here. Just depositing a little bit of this paint. It's in the tip of my brush and leaving a little bit on the top for the appearance of snow. So I'm going to get a little bit more pigment here. And I'll probably go in and make a second round. So I'm going to just dance my brush, and in this particular one, we really want to allow ourselves to leave a lot of white space. You can always go back in and fill in, but for now, let's just try to be aware of leaving that white instead of filling that all in with green. And back here, this is really small, so I'm just kind of guessing those lines there. Same with this one. Getting some of that pigment off of my brush. And you can see I can go back over some of what I already just painted, not all of it, and it'll bring two tones out and start to create that layered texture. Moving from left to right so that I don't get my hand in it. You do the opposite if you're left-handed, and top to bottom as best as I can. So although there is a little bit of green in here, I'm going to wait because in watercolor you really do want to be aware of letting things dry. So I kind of have an order that I'll do this motif in. Okay, I'm going to clear my brush over here. So I have a water brush you can buy on my website, or you can have your own, or just use a standard paintbrush that has a small tip to it. So I'm going to go in here, and you could always start with this, but we're going to use very, very fine lines with the end of this brush. Typically, if you're taking a class of mine, you'll practice doing fine lines just so that you're not letting your hand sag and getting a fatter line than maybe what you wanted. And I'm going to just tap in a little bit of brown along there. And then in these fine lines, I'm just barely touching those end brushes to the paper so that they're light. And because of that, I don't want a lot of water in the tip of my brush or it will create a fatter line. So I'm just barely picking up some pigment without water in it. And it's good to go ahead and get at least the tips of these trees and branches sort of the way you like them. Go in and add any extra layers now so you have plenty of time to dry if you'd like to put a sky in later. I'll make it easier to go around. Now I'll add that second layer into this tree. So the next thing that we'll do is work on our roof and our snow scene here. So this roof is very close to that green tree, so you'll want to let that dry or take a minute. And we're mixing up in here a little bit of stream and some water. Might put a little bit more just to kind of give that reflection of the sky in the white snow. Just kind of coming along this roof here a little bit. And then I just want to use very, very light, or you can even come in here and kind of put water and just flow along here as a snowdrift. This is a little path that a car has driven on, but then snow has fallen over it and closed up that path with snow. If you want to make it a river, that's fine too. It's up to you. And just kind of tapping in some snow here and there, and less can definitely be more, especially in your first pass, and you can always pull back some of that color and pigment with your paper towel. Kind of spreading that around a little bit more in here. And you can always pull pigment off by taking some on your brush and wiping it off onto your paper towel as well. So now that this roof has set up a little bit, I'm going to come in here and just kind of loosen some of that up just to keep that line and give a tint on the roof. And I'm going to grab some of that snow on the outside, on the eaves of this house here. And while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to put some details into my house. I'm going to paint this one like a cabin that has this kind of red color, reddish brown. Oops. My roof is not dry yet. And I'll do the first pass like so. Usually it takes students a little bit longer to do their snow, so this part would already be dry. And I'm going to come in here, and I think I'm going to go all the way to the peak. And I'll go back over those beams possibly with a little bit of dark brown when I'm done. This cabin looks like one we had in upstate New York in Ellicottville as a little ski cabin in the woods when I was growing up. And now I've got this watered down Bear and Sand Ridge in this kit. You can use whatever brown you would like that you've got at home. And I'm going to just sort of tap in. I'm using these black lines, can kind of give us structure. We don't have to fill everything in, but those rocks are sort of poking out through the snow. And I am going to tap a little bit of ground where maybe the snow wasn't quite as deep, or the grasses are kind of long here. Getting a little structure in a few places. Maybe the tree kept the snow from falling over there as much. And I can take a little bit of this blue and kind of tap it at the top of some of these boughs to sort of make it look like the snow was sitting on it. So it's a preference. You can decide whether that suits you or not. You can just leave it green or fill it more in with another tone of green if you'd like. And then on top of this fence is actually little piles of snow. If you lived up north, you know what that's like. I did. And now I'm going to add a little bit of darker blue in here, indicating some shadow areas. Just a tad. If you do this too dark blue, then it will look like an ocean. So you really want to make sure and test out your paints ahead of time that it's not too blue. And the tone of blue can matter too. This one is a little poppier or bright. You can use mist out of this kit as well. And it's got a little bit of a darker tone to it. Now my house got into my snow there, and it'll be almost near impossible to get that out. So I'll let that dry and maybe go over it with a little bit more blue in a minute. In the meantime, I'm going to put a few little grasses in here, just kind of following a few of these lines like so. And you can also use a light version of this and kind of think of it as like the grass is dry and sort of straw-like. So it depends. Is this a snow in November? Or is this a late snow in March, depending on where this is? Or if it's in the middle of winter, there's no green grass, it's brown. Okay, let me get this chimney up here, like so. And I'm going to pick a brown for my shutters, hoping that is dry. So it's kind of an impression of the shutters. I've seen students do a much better job. I've got the mic in the way here, so I'm not able to get as close to my painting as I normally would for something so small. And I'm going to see if I can add a little bit of blue in here to kind of divert your eye away from that little mistake that I made. Whoop. I'm using shadow right now. I can use like a light gray to kind of go under here. Shadow is the name of the color. And I'm making a shadow. So there you go. And you can always add some other shadows into your painting to give it dimension. But I really like this loose style. Something you could do plein air if you're painting something you're looking at, or you have a photo from your vacation. It's just kind of a nice loose interpretation of what you're seeing. It's not supposed to look ultra realistic. Now, you can finish this right here, or we can add in a sky. So I will show you how to do that if you want to put a sky. So we're going to say that this is a kind of an overcast day with a little more blue than maybe you normally would see. Sort of a gray blue. Now I have a little bit of color in here so I can see what I'm doing, but really you would go through with like clear water here. It's a little not as blue as I'd like. And I've got it turned sideways so that I can see around. I don't want to activate any of these branches. Usually don't recommend going up and down. We're kind of going side to side here, but I was getting into these little spaces to create less white paper. And I'm letting it sort of fade out on the page. So this is a way to give an impression of a sky without having to do the details. I feel like it'd be too distracting to have clouds and all that kind of thing, so that's up to you. If you do a darker sky and you want to use a white gel pen and add snowflakes coming down, that might be fun as well. But then you wouldn't really see as much of the reflection of the snow, obviously, unless it was a nice moonlit evening. Now I'm just kind of carefully sort of spreading that sky into the background. And I'm not going between each of these because I don't want a line around it, but I also don't want it to start activating. It started activating right there. You can kind of see it, which is okay, but I would still frame this one, even though there's this little thing you can kind of get rid of it and blend it in. And now we have our snowy scene.